This is the Oddball Show, a podcasting collaboration of JP Productions and Oddballs magazine.
Boys and girls, fish and fowl, welcome back to another episode of the Oddball Show, 2016's #1 podcast in your hearts. My name is Prof. I represent the JP Lime side of this collaboration, and with me, as always, is my podcaster in crime, the owner and editor, founder, and heart of Oddball Magazine, Mr. Jason Wright. Please say hello.
Well, hello there, everybody. My name is Jason Wright. I am with Oddball Magazine. Today on the program we have Not Art, and we'll figure out who Not Art is and all that jazz. And
yes.
So.
Indeed. Tonight we're lucky to be joined by a somewhat mysterious figure in the Boston area art scene. If you're local, specifically to Somerville and Cambridge, you've maybe seen his simple name brand stencil graffitied in the most innocuous places around the city. You may have also caught sight of it with the Not Art hashtag and or the Twitter handle. The handle on Instagram and Twitter. Is his work a descendant of artists like Andy Warhol and Marcel Duchamp, or is it vandalism? What statement does it make about what we believe art to be? One thing is for certain, it is most definitely not art. Please give a rousing Oddball Show welcome to the man known as Not Art.
How's it going?
Welcome, welcome. Thanks for being here, man. We really appreciate it.
Very glad to be here.
Yeah, I just want to start properly. Not art is definitely art. I'm going to go with that first off.
Are you sure about that?
I'm not totally sure about that. It's not art.
So I think we lost him.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, what he had to say wasn't very important anyway.
Not art. You apparently catch on very quick to the way things work here at the Oddball Show. Well, here's one of the places I did want to start. We'll come right back to you, Jason. Is so this March. Correct me if I'm wrong. You had your first actual studio show of your outside artwork. Is that a weird, like, double ironic twist to your work? And I don't know, maybe use that as a segue just to talk about your work as a whole.
Well, that show was my first more important show, and I did a lot of photography, and there are photographs of the work in the wild, as you guys have witnessed it. I took all the photographs on my iPhone and had them framed and stuff, and it worked out really well. It was a really good show.
Is there a note to that you feel like is so? It strikes me as almost ironic. I don't know, maybe that's not the right word, but it's interesting that your work is so based on being outside and being in places where people would not expect art to be in some ways, and then to take it and then put it back into a gallery is, I don't know, it's interesting to me.
I got to make a living somehow.
Right on, man. Yeah, passerbys are not paying down money at each one of your sites.
I thought about leaving a donation box next to the Not Art stencils in certain places, but you know what? I think that would get vandalized too, and that's not a good idea.
Vandalized or just straight up emptied?
Yes, exactly.
Well, let's jump this way a little bit. As I started to look at your stuff and read a little bit, one of the key influences, and you've talked a little bit about this in other interviews, or maybe not influences, but one of the person that starts some of this idea of ready-mades or found art is Marcel Duchamp. Would you consider him a big influence of yours?
I don't think that I'd be doing what I'm doing if it weren't for Marcel Duchamp. I don't think that. I would say that he's an influence, but I don't think that I could know more about him.
I gotcha.
Put it that way. I don't know. The other day I was having this argument with my friend about what Duchamp meant with the urinal, and I feel I know what he meant with the urinal, but then I realized I'd never actually heard him say it. So
yeah.
Does anybody know exactly what he really meant? And so, I don't know. I mean, I haven't read many books on Duchamp, but I know that we wouldn't be in this state of affairs in the art world if it weren't for Duchamp kind of breaking the boundaries. And so, yeah, I learned about Duchamp a little bit, and his ideas were pretty awesome. So I definitely jumped on that bandwagon. But do I consider him an influence? Maybe in other interviews I might have said yes, but at the moment I'm feeling like I need to read more books about Duchamp to really know what he was all about.
I mean, well, okay, so here's another one too that I think kind of just speaks to. So maybe influence is the wrong idea, because the interesting thing to me is this idea of anti-art that comes around every once in a while. That Duchamp is in. I don't want to be wrong here, but like the 19-teens and early 20s, and then the same kind of concept comes around with pop art, with like Andy Warhol doing something similar. Taking a basic object of human life and then painting a picture of it in a simplistic form, or even just it itself in a gallery. So that idea is similar. What do you think about why that anti-art? It seems almost cyclical, or is it not? Like,
that's a really interesting statement and an interesting observation that I've never actually heard before. So props to you for that one, Prof.
Well, thank you, sir.
But I think that every once in a while, in any field of art or music or anything, people need to redefine what the movement is. I mean, what art is or what music is, and that's always going to happen. So I'm definitely not bringing that. I don't think that I'm really bringing that around as much as I'm sort of accentuating what these guys were talking about before. I really rely upon this moment in art history where somebody can look at the tag "not art" and they can just completely understand it. They can get it. It's not like if it was maybe the 1950s, somebody would look at "not art" and just say, well, yes, of course, that is not art.
Right.
And that's totally straightforward, and there would be no irony. So, thanks to Warhol and Duchamp and countless others to set the stage such that I can do this. And this is only relevant. I mean, this is relevant, and this is what I'm doing because I'm doing it now. I mean, I came up with this idea now. It's just a matter of what was on my mind at the time. I was asking questions, what is art, before I came up with the not art idea. And, I'm sure painters back in, the 1800s weren't asking those questions. They weren't thinking, what is art? They were thinking about maybe what should they paint or whatever. Right. I don't know what they were thinking about. But these are the things that we're thinking about nowadays as artists. We want to know what art is and what we should do with it. Where is it going? So that's kind of what I'm relying on when I present people with not art.
I think it's really interesting, and I think so we talked a little bit about the historical roots to that, but I think even in a modern context, especially with tagging, the not just the irony, but the conflicting ideas of that are really interesting and bring up some of the same inherent ideas. Like, people would look at tagging or graffiti in a lot of contexts in its own, no matter how big and beautiful and well structured, as not necessarily art. So then you've taken this modern art form, if you want to call it that, and within that there's an irony and a contrast. You know what I'm saying? By using that specific art form,
it's interesting. I mean, for me, that's definitely true, and I've kind of entered into a sort of a graffiti counterculture to some degree, more street art. But when I first started doing it, it was just, I wanted to get out there and get people to see what I was doing, and it just made sense to put it on the street. I didn't know what street art was when I started doing it. I had dabbled in graffiti when I was in high school and got into trouble. And, yeah. So, I mean, I got into trouble for actually writing on the back seat of the school bus, if you can believe it. Like, who gets in trouble for that? Like, nobody gets in trouble for that. That's ridiculous. So I learned that wasn't like the best idea, and then I got out of that aesthetic, the graffiti aesthetic, and came up with Not Art really independently. But so I think it's very utilitarian to put things on the street.
Yeah.
It's you know, it does have that commentary on graffiti and vandalism. You know, it has that commentary, but it was almost accidental. It was almost like a plus that or a bonus that it has that. It wasn't really the intention. You know, I definitely am careful not to put it next to anybody's graffiti or on top of somebody else's graffiti because, you know, maybe they don't want to be considered not art. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe they want to make sure that people see their stuff as just vandalism and they don't like to be considered art, which I've heard some graffiti artists are into that. But, you know, I don't want to call anybody's art not art. So I have to be careful where I put it. I can't put it on any art, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, because then you make, in some ways, the opposite statement that you're making in the first place of like, you know, moments of beauty or moments of small little pieces somehow that are overlooked. That those are the art. You know, is that by then labeling something that is definitely art or is, you know, accepted as art, not art, it makes almost a different statement.
Yeah, totally. So straight away from that for sure.
I do want to jump right in a minute back to a couple more questions about street art, and I really want to bring up Banksy, who I think is interesting. Wait,
who? I don't know.
Never heard him. Never been asked about him. But before we do that, I want to real quick introduce one of our mainstay oddballs, one of the people that keeps this show going, who has joined us as we've been going along. He is one of the co-editors of Oddball magazine, and he runs the Stone Soup Poetry Open Mic, as well as other poetry initiatives in Boston, which you can talk about later on. Mr. Chad Parento, say hello.
In honor of tonight's show, I'm calling myself not Chad. I just couldn't change it. I couldn't change it in my Google ID, but great pleasure to meet you, Mr. Not Art.
Very nice to meet you.
And I appreciate your Banksy comment, and if I could just throw in a question. So you were saying you did this independently of people like Banksy, and I'll bring up another name because I just heard an interview with him a little while ago, Shepard Fairey. Right. For those who don't know out there, he's the person who created the Andre the Giant Obey graffiti that you've probably seen now on T-shirts, and he also designed the Obama Hope logo.
Yep.
Now, I guess my question is just to bring up those two people for people who don't know, and if you don't know who Banksy is, I recommend for those of you who are watching an excellent documentary called Exit at the Gift Shop, which documents Banks, not so much Banksy, but one of his proteges, Mr. Brainwash, and he's worth looking up. But my question,
that's a great movie, Exit Through the Gift Shop.
Yes, and so what did you think? What was your reaction? What was your reaction to your own art after you came to understand that there's other people, you know, doing very similar work? I mean,
well, okay, that's a good question, because I can remember the first time I ever saw any of Banksy's work, and it was shown to me by the younger brother of a girlfriend, and he was really into graffiti, and he was like, "Here, check this out." And I had come up with Not Art maybe 2 years before, and I started looking through this thing, and I was just like, "Oh my God, I'm done! Like, I'm not gonna do it anymore. This is totally trumped me."
You beat me to the punch.
All the concepts.
Chronologically speaking, what year was this when you discovered him?
Oh, geez, I don't know, but I would guess probably 2007 or something. but I'm really bad with time, so I'm not exactly sure. But it was his first book that he put out, and yeah, I had never seen anything like it. It totally blew me out of the water.
And you're
And then
part
I
of an
figured,
emerging. You're part of almost an emerging movement. That 2007. That's before Shepard Fairey, basically hit with his Obama logo and kind of put graffiti artists in a crazy limelight, at least for a short time.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely still.
You're kind of with the movement in some weird way.
Yeah, it's definitely still going on. What I'm doing is street art. Like, I'll admit that. I kind of want to do a piece that says this is not street art,
I like that.
but I haven't gotten around to doing that yet. But when I came up with it, it was strictly utilitarian. It was just, how am I going to get people to see what I'm doing? I don't know. It was just pretty much like, I came up with this idea that not art. Why don't I write this around town? Like, let's see what happens. So I think it was a similar approach as most street artists go. They have their own thing, and they start doing it on the street. It's not like they're part of a culture. Like, graffiti has a culture, and it has a sort of methodology, if you want to call it that. But street art, I would say each individual brings his or her own take on what street art is or should be. So you can use all different media, and Banksy uses stencils, Shepard Fairey uses wheat paste, and it's all street art because it's on the street.
I mean, I think it's definitely connected to me. There are two different kinds of graffiti, almost of old school graffiti. One where it's big, giant portraits, usually on train cars or in tunnels, and then and it's from the same artist in a lot of cases. And then there's also just the tagging of your tag name, which is stylized in its own way, but often repeatedly and like on any kind of surface you can reach, which is to me the real conflict of graffiti. And growing up in Dorchester, there was a lot of that. Like, it was just everywhere, and it was an interesting thing to watch because some of them are awesome looking, some of them really, and it's the same kind of thing in some ways as what you're doing, of like, this is a not discarded but an overlooked place. This is a train tunnel. This is like somewhere that nothing else would go. You wouldn't paint a mural here, you wouldn't do something else here, so I'm seizing this as an artist. This is my spot. And then there's a lot of also just taking your name and tagging it, which looks almost like a virus, like just taking over a wall. So I think that's a really interesting contrast in graffiti itself, and it also, like, you encapsulate some of those same ideas. The thing that you are tagging is your name. You are doing something similar to both, I suppose, that like by placing your name in places,
I would say graffiti artists definitely see it or they can see it that way. I have some street cred. I didn't think the graffiti artists were going to like what I was doing at all, but I've met some graffiti artists that do like it, and I say that I didn't think they were going to like it because it's really not artistic, whereas a lot of graffiti artists are very artistic, and very stylized. So I don't know exactly what it is that they liked about what I was doing, but I suspect it might have been the fact that I was putting it in a lot of places, just the repetition of it. And but the cool thing about what I've been doing is that it hasn't been attached to the graffiti culture, and it hasn't been looked at as a tag, because that wasn't what its intent was. Its intent was to draw attention to something that was already there, something that I found beautiful. And I'm impressed that people have really, kind of followed that. They don't look at it as a tag so much, and I don't want to associate it as like my name. So I wouldn't be I'm not art. Right. But if people want to call me that, that's That's okay. You know, it's not going to upset me.
Just not quite accurate.
But it's not exactly what I'm going for.
Right.
You know, so mostly I'm impressed that people do look at it the way I intended it to be looked at. They look at it as something that's making a statement about something else. They look at it, instead of looking at it as a tag, they look at it as saying there's that object that it's on is not art. You know, so it's like a label for something. So
which by labeling it that, that's the essential irony, is that by labeling it that, it is art. It is suddenly then transformed.
Well, okay, so you jump to that conclusion. Not everybody jumps to that
Interesting.
conclusion.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
You know, so I would say most people do, and that's my intent, is for people to jump to that conclusion. But some people do look at it as just a matter-of-fact statement that what I'm putting on is not art. Or other people look at it as, I've heard people say that what I'm trying to do, or what they thought I was trying to do, was to raise awareness about the fact that there isn't art where there should be art. Why isn't there art there? It's like a rundown space. Maybe there needs to be art there.
I see.
So that's not at all what I'm going for, but just like a painting has subjective views, you know, many different views on the same painting, I want my art to be open-ended, to kind of, you know, emphasize the importance of everybody's point of view.
Right on. All right, I don't want to keep stealing you, so first, before I get back to Chad's question, because I know Chad has one more question, I want to make sure that Jason is actually technologically in tune with what's happening on the Oddball Show. You here with us still, brother?
Am I technologically in tune? Most likely not. I've been lagging this whole time. I'm really interested to hear how the podcast is going to sound. Am I ever technologically in tune? Probably not.
Yeah, I suppose that's a fair statement.
Yeah,
Hashtag not tuned.
Yeah. Not tuned. I guess, you know, before I freeze, I guess I'm just going to ask Not Art. Do you identify with street artists more, or do you identify with outside artists more? That's my question.
Okay, well, if I identified with outside artists, then I wouldn't be identifying with any artist, because
they don't really exist.
Well, they exist, but only after we have labeled them as outsider artists. So I identify myself as an artist that is doing what comes easiest to me as an artist. So I'm following my own sort of path, but definitely since I've learned what street art is, I would identify as a street artist. There's no shame in that, you know.
Yeah, street artists are definitely dope. I enjoy seeing art on the street as much as I see art in a gallery. I mean, except for unless it's the Out of the Blue art gallery, then I really enjoy it all. You know, it's funny that you'll see a street artist like Shepard Fairey, you know, on the street, and then you'll see him at the ICA. So, you know, it's definitely a movement, and it's a beautiful thing to see street art come from, you know, the streets to museums and galleries. Is that what you're intending? Is that your intention, or are you just trying to get your name out there, or are you just doing this because you feel like it's something that you want to you know, give the world? You know, do you want to, you know, show the world, or yeah, are you trying to show the world who you are, or are you trying to make a statement that this is not art, but it is art, but it's not art?
I mean, I definitely, I like the latter. So I definitely have some strong opinions.
I don't know.
Yeah, I have some strong opinions about art, and this is a good, fun way to get those opinions across. It's rather than telling people my opinion, I'm showing people my opinion. and it's really it served me well. It's a great form of communication. I'm very lucky in that sense. Now, I would definitely love to bring things to galleries, to museums. I'm not exactly sure how to break through, but I'm working on some word-based paintings, I guess you would call them, that have different kind of wordplay, and I'm planning to bring those to some galleries pretty soon.
All right. So what you're saying is you're trying to keep the not art become sort of a movement, but also on to the next thing. You're trying to keep on reinventing yourself.
Sure. Yeah. I don't see why not.
It's kind of what the Lime and Oddball do all the time. I mean, you know, we just kind of came up with these ideas. You know, I came up with Oddball like 20 years ago, and I keep on. You know, I mean, I have just as much. You know, it's not on the street walls, but it's definitely, you know, everywhere else. You know, because I'm trying to make a name for myself, just like how JP Lime's trying to do their thing. You know, so it's all about kind of representing, in a way, representing yourself and representing your whole idea.
But aren't you doing what you just have to do?
Basically, yeah. I mean, this is all I know. I mean, writing poetry and writing music and art and stuff is just something I really know how to do, and it's just something that, you know, I've grown up with. So that's why I kind of commend what you're doing. You know, and
it's what I have to do.
Yeah.
It's actually the easiest way to do what I want to do, because I don't have to spend hours, you know, painting things or you know, detailed artistic things. I just slap knot art on something, and you know, people react. So it's pretty simple.
Does it ever get to you when people make that, like you almost just made it was like a hidden self-criticism, but I've seen some of the comments on some of your articles. Like, obviously people go off in comment sections. People have said some of that similar stuff, that like it's simple, or you're just slapping knot art, or like, you know, it's avoiding being an artist in some ways. Does those kind of criticisms ever get to you?
You know, I would like to say no, but it's weird. Like, I haven't had. You probably saw some things online, maybe a Reddit or something like that.
Yeah.
But you know, there are certain sites that the comment section should really be called complaints.
Yeah. No shit.
and you know, so it's weird. It's like everything that everybody writes on those particular sites is just scathing and awful. Mm-hmm. And I think I wasn't so upset. It's been a long time. I spent a lot of time on Instagram, and almost everything I hear on Instagram is positive. Mm-hmm. I hear so much positive stuff that it's mind-boggling how positive people are. But I do remember some people said some nasty things, and I was like, okay, that's fine, you know, they can say that. But then one person said, I know that guy, he's an idiot. And I was like, no, that's where you're getting personal. Like, you can call my art crappy and whatever, but don't call me an idiot.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was pretty pissed about that, and that hurt my feelings, definitely. But you know, when it's like I can hide behind not art. It's not my name, so people aren't saying right. This guy's an idiot. They can say not art sucks. It's the stupidest thing ever. And actually, my roommate, when I discovered not art, when I came up with the idea, she hated it. She said it was the stupidest thing ever. And she liked my other artwork, but she hated not art so much, and she would tell me constantly. So I was used to it at the beginning. I knew that it's supposed to, you know, it's supposed to rile people up a little bit, and it definitely riled her up. And if it gets to you, if it gets to certain people, then I'm doing my job correctly.
Yeah, right on.
I have a question. Do you have Do you have other stencils, or is it just like a stencil or an idea, or you ever change up the stencil, or?
Yeah, I do mostly word-based stuff. Uh, Actually, almost completely word-based stuff. And usually I get the stencils just at a hardware store or whatever, put them together. And I guess there's a little bit of artistry in that, in like the spacing of the letters, but it's really not art. So it's very simple, and it's more about the placement. Like, I'm very particular about where I want something to be placed. I've done a stencil that just says beauty, and I've put that around town on certain places that I think should be seen as beautiful, but they're not. They're more run down kind of places.
Mm-hmm.
And that one works. I like that one. And I've done sculpture on things that could be a sculpture that clearly are not a sculpture, but they could be a sculpture. So I put that around town a little bit. But mainly the not art thing is, what's great about not art is I get to see people's responses to it. I get to hear about it. The other ones I don't really hear so much. So that's about it.
I have one question, but I don't want to jump through. Chad, you got a question there, my friend?
I do. Although he was mentioning going to rundown places, it reminded me to say that, yeah, I've seen his art near where I live and work. And it's kind of funny because when I first saw it, I didn't know anything about it aside from the graffiti, and I started taking pictures of it wherever I saw it, at a bus stop, or cleverly put on I think an overturned telephone pole, something like that, near a place where they was doing construction, and I thought this was all clever, and I was starting to say, oh, I'll categorize this, and then I saw the T-shirt at the Out of the Blue 2 gallery, and I'm like, oh. But then it excited me again, because now I'm like, oh, I'm on the cusp of something viral, which got me to wanting to ask you, I've talked about this with friends before, as far as like how art and culture and the internet. When I used to pursue certain arts and cultures, before the internet happened, it was always more of like a thrill of discovery. Whereas now everything's available at the touch of a button, really, or at the click of a search engine. And it kind of struck me, and I don't know if you agree with this, but it seems like street art, given the legal gray area, among other things. Now all the graffiti artists have websites, and not all of them can. But it seems like this form of street art is probably one of those last kind of places where it's maybe the last truly underground art form where you really have to discover it in order to know anything about it, to really have that gateway in. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I know of a street artist who actually put up a sign that says, street art, it really happens on the internet.
I guess there goes my theory, but what do you think he meant by that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's all over the internet, It's great when you do encounter it in the wild, and when you're walking down the street and all of a sudden you see something. It's a very different experience. And then you get to photograph it and you get to put it on the internet.
Right.
Well, I think it's a cool thing that social. I thought that's where Chad was going to go with this question. It's an interesting thing that before you would not necessarily, like you were saying, had an open venue for it. You can't make your own website of your street art that is illegally placed places, or less than legally, not even legally in most places. But I think it's interesting then that that social media exists, Instagram exists to then you can find pictures of it. You can have an effective gallery of it without it having to be attached to you in any kind of way. I think that's a cool aspect for street. It's the same kind of thing for any other street artists we've talked about so far on the show. That's how it goes viral. Is people seeing it? I guess it wasn't always that way. Like Andre the Giant was viral before that existed. So I just think it's interesting. It's certainly a useful part of that now.
I would say most people that I encounter know about it from the street rather than from Instagram, even though I have a pretty strong Instagram presence. And I do meet some people who follow me on Instagram, which is great. But most people know it just from seeing it around town. Because what better place to get people but on their way to work, or just on their way traveling somewhere? That's a moment that they have to themselves that they can kind of share with you, with your street art, and you can share that moment with them. I mean, I like to think of myself as kind of setting up a little place, a little moment or a location where I'm saying, you can think whatever you want of this little scene here, but I want you to think, and I want you to have fun thinking. And it's kind of the opposite of what everything that we see on our way to work, that all the advertisements are telling us. They're all telling us to think a certain way, and so it's refreshing to be able to provide this alternative way of thinking, and giving people a free space to do their own thinking and to have fun with it.
Is there a secret sauce to your locations?
I just it's like some kind of Pavlovian response.
I like that.
I just see something and I'm like, this needs a knot art on it. I mean, obviously it has to be a smooth surface, or somewhat smooth, to hold the stencil. But there are certain things that just really catch my eye, and now that I've kind of had to stop a little bit, I can't be as free to do what I want to do because of some police involvement. It's been hard to walk by those places that are just begging for a knot art stencil. It's sad.
Wait, so why? Talk on that. Why have you had to stop? You got caught?
Well, yeah. Here in Somerville, I got caught by the police, and fortunately it wasn't a big deal, and I was just told to stop. So I stopped for about 1.5 years, and just recently I was thinking there's got to be some kind of loophole that I can get through, that I can sort of still do this a little bit, and I've been putting it on things that I find kind of like in the trash and stuff like that. So it doesn't feel it's not as cool to me, but it still has a fun element of surprise to see a knot art on like a couch that's sitting outside of somebody's apartment. So it's pretty cool, but that's only in Somerville, and New York is wide open, so I feel pretty confident about doing stuff in New York. And around Boston area, I just need to be careful.
Yeah.
So
I just want to say, of course, it was Somerville. Just
Really? You see, I've heard people say that they thought that Somerville would be super open-minded.
Me too. That's what I would think. Yeah.
What's the story?
I don't know the full story, but I don't know. Somerville just seems, just as a collective, just to be a little bit more uptight, at least as far as its the inner workings of like the police and the law and whatnot.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, they do have they have a pretty strong arts council, and they do have good music. They're definitely supportive, but I think I understand the idea of once I saw the first time I saw knot art, the street art was on it was in an empty gas station.
I love that one.
Yeah.
That was my favorite.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was like, that's definitely something to think about. Is it not art? Is it art? Is it just you know what I mean? So and that was in Somerville. or somewhere, I don't know.
Yeah, Somerville.
And I was like pretty psyched to see that. So I can't imagine that. It's not like you're writing, fuck the police or something, in a stencil on the, whatever. You're writing something that's contemporary and cool. I can't see how much they're gonna throw the gauntlet down on you. But hey, I don't know. People don't. I mean, some people are like, that's straight up vandalism because you vandalized a trash can or a mailbox or something. But is it really? I mean, you're just basically trying to make a statement.
Well, I have to say,
is it vandalism? I mean, why would someone care so much to throw penalties at you for basically,
I just know I got away with it for many years, so I'm kind of happy that I had as long a run as I did.
Yeah, right
on. And now it kind of forces me to move on to another city. Not that I'm moving or anything, but I mean moving my residence. But going to New York and putting stuff up in New York it's pushing me to do that. And I might stop by Baltimore. I really need to go to Philly. So this is pushing me to move on a little bit, and I got to think about it in the positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Jason, I think it might be a good time. We went strong on that first segment. A good time to break for a little fake advertisement or a not advertisement from one of our non-sponsors. That sound good to you? Uh-oh. We lost Jason.
Hashtag not money.
I think we lost Jason. I'm not quite entirely sure.
While Jason's catching up, I will say, I do want to ask.
Can you hear all that?
Oh, there you go. I didn't hear any of that until you just said, can you hear all that?
Oh, I said I was in a glass box of emotion.
Punted Baxter off the bridge. Bad man on the bridge.
Are you setting up your own exhibition, Jason?
No. That was a quote from a movie that I once saw.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a great one. Called Poltergeist.
Poltron.
Anyway, while I have you on the line, everybody, before my computer lags out, hashtag lag out, I guess we'll talk about our announcement for the day.
There you go.
All right. So I'm going to announce that we are doing another second second episode of the Oddball Poetry Hour that's going to be happening in 3 weeks in Cambridge at the Starbucks in Harvard Square. We did it last week or 2 weeks ago, and they loved it, except for the content was not as family appropriate as possible.
Well, let's put it this way: Chad was too much of a rock star.
Chad was a rock star.
I said I wasn't sorry. Okay.
Amen, dude. Those are some great poems. All right, I support every one of those. Yeah. And that crowd needed to be riled up, all right?
But I do apologize to Jason for almost killing the series before it began, because I could have choked it like a bitch, but I'm glad it still continues. Who are going to be the readers, Jason?
Uh-oh.
Yep, lost me again.
Not readers. Who are going to be the readers for the show, Jason? We hear you.
I don't know. We don't have the readers yet. Chad Prento is going to be one of the readers.
I am? Oh,
yeah, well, yeah. You're just going to have to, I don't know.
I'm going to have to create Starbucks Jesus for my next.
I was thinking of writing a poem about Dunkin' Donuts to all the people who are listening at Starbucks. About not loitering or whatnot. I don't know.
So basically, people, if you're listening to this, the Oddball Poetry Hour is taking place in Harvard Square at Starbucks, and I guess our basic agenda is to try and do as much as we can without actually getting kicked out, or actually seeing if we can get kicked out, which, to my surprise, didn't happen last time. So, hashtag Starbucks, hashtag not an ad, hashtag we make no money from this.
Hashtag corporate. Hashtag corporate coffee shop.
Hashtag it damn well better be art because God knows what it is otherwise.
Yeah, but we get free lattes, so it's not that bad.
Oh God, I think that's what they were mad at the most when I said, "Hey, if you read, you get a free coffee, and if you feature, you get something from the hip flask that the baristas carry in their back pockets."
How do you think they maintain their smile?
Having worked as a Starbucks barista for less than a year, I must say there's no other recourse, which is why I got points off for not being personable.
Did you get
I don't drink.
For, mess up a latte or something, or?
I got written up for messing up a latte. It was crazy, but enough about me and places I'm not allowed at anymore. Thankfully, I'm still allowed at Starbucks over the bridge to Cambridge.
Well, I mean, anyway, so the Oddball Poetry Hour is coming to a Starbucks near you in Cambridge in Harvard Square. We promise we will not be as awesome as we were last time. We'll be more awesome. We are pushing the boundaries of corporate coffee houses.
That should be your tagline. Pushing the boundaries of corporate coffee houses.
Yeah, everyone has to make a difference, and I just want to make your lattes more enjoyable.
Mr. Not Art, stencil that for us. Or do I call you sorry?
That sounds like a good idea.
Yes. Okay. For those of you who are listening to this on iTunes, and you're still listening, we do this on Google Hangouts, and his Mr. Not Art's icon for Google is sorry it's not art. So I guess we'll call you Mr. Sorry, or sorry, Sir Sorry, Mr. Not. I don't know. I'm out of ideas.
Yeah, so when he says sorry it's not art, it's like sorry you're talking to not art, or sorry it's not art, or sorry my logo's not art. I don't.
It's up to you, bro. It's up to interpretation.
Mr. Sorry, I must say you come from a long line of, whether you know it or not, people who have done not art in the past or done their non-demonstrations. I don't know if Boston has a predilection for it, if it's certain artists. Now, I'm not saying that people have done what you've done in terms of visual, but I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Rich Mackin.
No, I never heard of him.
He was a spoken word artist of no small water back when he was in Boston. Some controversy, but one thing I actually covered, and I'll give a link to you guys if you want. He staged what has probably been the first and only non-protest, which was done back in 2000. He loved making non-statements. One of his pilots for a TV show was just him walking around a street with the sign saying "No comment."
Wow, I love that.
The non-protest, he basically said, like, it was the year Blair Witch came out. He's like, in this day of this year, both Time and Newsweek featured on their covers the Blair Witch Project. Essentially, no news is good news. So he staged in the public park near Park Street T-stop the first non-protest, where they had signs like "Everything is fine," "No comment." One person had a blank sign, and they had the chant of 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. What do we want? Nothing. What do we want? When do we want it? Whenever. It was epic, and there's been other examples I can't label right now, but when I think of your not art and how you've explained it, I can see there's a weird, bizarre family tree that no one wants to admit owning of people doing this type of not anything not art, not anything type of creativity.
I definitely want to link to that guy's information. That's pretty good.
He's not that much on the line. He's in Portland right now, and he used to do a zine called The Book of Letters, which was him writing to corporations and getting an array of crazy replies sometimes. He was very famous with duking it out with Lever 2000, asking them to name the 2000 body parts.
I always thought that was bullshit.
Apparently it was. They never could answer him.
It was pretty funny. That was a good. If you can find that book anywhere, it's Dear Mr. Mackin, and man, that's a funny book.
Phenomenal book.
Phenomenal, yeah. And the fact that that he's he was a local dude and stuff. pretty cool because it's a really cool idea. You know, the book was full of like 60 or 70 letters that he wrote to, corporations, just explaining that, there was a good one about Hellman's mayonnaise and
Oh God, yeah.
and Kane's relish and stuff like that, and Sprite, and all these just funny ideas. And
Comparing GE to Frankenstein because their tagline was "We bring good things to life."
But the best one probably was the Lever 2000 because he was trying to like say, it's clearly we don't have 2,000 body parts, but your slogan is, we wash all 2,000 of your body parts, and then he like lists, he's like, there's 111 body parts, and then it was pretty good.
I won't talk anymore about it, but just if anyone's interested, look up Dear Mr. Mackin. I'm sure that's still available on Amazon. Mackin's an associate of mine who I covered a lot on the Boston Press. When I actually bought his book, he signed it, "Stop Following Me, Rich." So I don't want to get too much more into him, otherwise people are going to think I have some kind of weird psychosis around him. But I guess that was a very roundabout, long-winded way, sorry, Mr. Sorry, to ask you, have you ever come across other non-artists in your travels, like people creating not art or not anything?
I have definitely encountered a lot of not artists. People find not art in all different places, and then they send it to me on the internet. So,
what's the most prominent piece given to you that you can think of?
Prominent? There's definitely a huge festival in Australia called the This Is Not Art Festival. There's something else called We Make Money, Not Art.
Nice.
I mean, oh, you know what? A woman stopped when I was selling T-shirts in Harvard Square the other day. A woman stopped and said that her friends had written a play called Not Art a couple years before. And when I Googled it, I had seen that the flyer for that play when I was looking at images, like not art images. So it was a full circle kind of thing, which is kind of funny.
There's another one in Vogue that they just did when I pulled up, I did the same thing, I Googled it. There's another spread in Vogue's art section, literally titled Not Art. And it's the same kind of thing from an artist I don't know, John Balderassi. But
I have not seen that.
But when I was Googling stuff today, it just popped right up. So I think you make a great point that you're not, whether it's compulsive or it's a movement or it's just, rise up in different places, you're not alone with the concepts that you're expressing, And I was going to ask you about the This Is Not Art movement or This Is Not Art Festival in Australia, whether you ever considered going or whether, because when I looked at that picture, that was crazy. It was like you had put it on a wall,
I don't know. I want to stay away from these other not artists. I don't want to. I don't
might
want
cause
to
an explosion.
Spread on, yeah, exactly. I don't want to spread on their feet. I mean, I do like when other people kind of copy what I'm doing. That's kind of cool. So, at first I was debating, should I be angry at them and should I claim this to be my own thing? But then I thought, isn't it better to start a movement than just to start your own thing?
Right.
So there's a guy in New York who started an Instagram, Not Art New York City, and I mean that's a little bit over the top because he's just done a couple little not arts here and there, but that's cool. I said to him through Instagram, I told him, carry on, this is cool, do it. And then there's a guy in Lowell doing some not art, and he's a very talented stencil artist. He's done some other stuff. So, I'm into supporting these other not artists, but I guess
you've given your non-blessing.
Right, exactly. I guess when it comes to the other like a big festival, that's too much for me. I would feel like I don't know, I might want to stop doing it.
What if you were the keynote speaker? Would you go?
Oh yeah, well then I would. Yeah, for sure.
There you go.
Well, we are coming down to the end of the Oddball hour here. I mean, the end of the hour here in the Oddball Show. What's the name of our show again? It's actually been a thrilling and like self-motivated conversation, so we didn't even break it up that much. I would like here at the end, I have one more question for Mr. Not Art. I'd also like to do a quick wrap-up of what's going on at JP Lime and Oddball Magazine, so we'll try to keep that short and tight. But then we'll end on Jason's Jagged Thought for the week. So my final question for you, Mr. Not Art, is so much of your art has to deal with what is art and what is not. Have you yourself found yourself any closer to, answering that question? What is art? Is there any? Has it solidified at all for you?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So it took me a long time to come up with the conclusion that everything is art. But the only way you can really explain that is through this art project, the Not Art project, I feel like I'm kind of showing people and allowing them to get a glimpse of that philosophy. But I'm not telling them, because when you say to somebody everything is art, it doesn't really make sense.
Right.
But what I guess the best way I can explain it is that who gets to determine what is or isn't art, it's completely arbitrary, and it's up to the individual artist. So there's no like art police that is gonna come along and say that's not art, get it out of here. So we're at a time in art history where a lot of things can be done. A lot of things are accepted to be art. I mean, a lot of people will roll their eyes and say, that's not art, that's ridiculous. But, you can never push the envelope too far, really. Well, I don't know, you can, but it still can be considered art. So, I don't know, I guess I say every time you think of anything in terms of art, if you say, is that art? You've already made it art, because you're considering the fact that it might be art.
Right.
So if you just walk by it and you totally ignore it and you're not thinking about art or anything, then maybe it's not art. But now that I'm talking about it, I just made it into art, whatever that is.
Excellent. I think, and that to me, that's the thing that we brought up earlier with your work, and what I consider the central irony and my interpretation of it is that by making it, by subjectively looking at it, forcing someone to subjectively looking at it, you turn it into art. Whether it's good art or bad art is not part of not part of the discussion, really.
Well, you definitely got it, but every time somebody has the reaction that you just had, I feel like I've won.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Hey, I'm here for you, buddy. All right, so we are coming down to the end of the wire here. Luckily, it's the internet, and we don't have any corporate overlords telling us to get off the air. So what I'd like to do is jump on over to my good friend Chad for what's going on at Oddball Magazine. We'll come back to me for what's going on at JP Lime, and then we'll jump to Mr. Jason Wright for his Jagged Thought of the Week. Mr. Chad.
Thank you, Chris. We have a lot going on at Oddball already this week. There's the Odds by Bill Harvey, our resident cartoonist. And I also want to thank everyone who came to Stone Soup this past month as we celebrated our 45th anniversary at the Out of the Blue Art Gallery. And there was no better way to finish off than with a poem that I actually discovered from the late Jack Powers, who founded Stone Soup 45 years ago in 1971. It was one of the last poems he had actually written before and performed before a stroke had robbed him of the rest of his speech, sad to say. And I actually found it while I was doing an apartment cleaning, and it was great to finally transcribe it for the first time from the original paper, which I'm giving to his son, to Oddball Magazine from Monday. We also have poetry by Nicholas Lemez, which I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, Wentworth student who's being published for the first time. I can tell people to be on the lookout for our usual columnists, Janet Cormier, Andrew Bourne, James Van Looy, Liza Zayas with her Underground Garden, and but most of all tomorrow, stay tuned for the return of a regular contributor of ours, Tim Gager.
Yeah!
And much, much more, as they say.
That is Oddball Magazine, the dopest poetry site that you're going to find this side of the Mississippi. It is oddballmagazine.com. And on my end, at jp9productions.com, your world with a crunchy hip-hop center, we have a lot going on. Last couple of weeks, we've been doing little short bits of our rap flashback piece, including the Boogie Down Productions album, By All Means Necessary, which came out the end of May, as well as The Sunrises in the East from Jaber the Damager, also came out the end of May. So we do a little piece on each of those. And then coming up at the beginning of June, we have Gangstar, their debut album, No One Mr. Nice Guy, came out at the beginning of June. I think it's the 6th. I can't really remember. But yeah, so we get little short bits of our rap flashback up there, and then our June one will be coming along not too long. But I'm also planning on doing a piece this week on continuing my comic book nerd movie lifestyle. I saw Apocalypse the other day, and I thought it was pretty darn good. So while I raved about Avengers Civil War and took a shit on Batman vs. Superman, I think I'll have a pretty positive review of Apocalypse coming soon. So that should be my piece for the end of the week at jp9productions.com. And that's what you can find at your home for Boston hip-hop, jp9productions.com. Mr. Jason, how you feeling, buddy? I think Mr. Jason faded out a little bit. We are jp9productions.com and oddballmagazine.com, and the Oddball Show is a collaboration of the two. Please come and check us out. Up on our site right now, jp9productions.com, is the podcast, and on the end of that, I will add a pertinence link section to all the different pieces that we want to keep track of from our conversation here tonight. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, both separate sites and together, and we are on iTunes now, so come find us, please.
Yeah,
Mr. Jason?
Yes, here somewhere in cyberspace, I just want to thank It's Not Art for being on the show. And I'm just going to close off with Jagged Thought 126, Alarm the Aching Ears of the Illiterate.
All right. Yes, so indeed, thank you very much, Not Art. Thanks for being here tonight. It was a great discussion. Please go and check out what Not Art is about.
Thank you, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great. Good talk.
All right, Jason, take it away, my friend.
All right. This is Jagged Thought 126, Alarm the Aching Ears of the Illiterate. 8:11 a.m. Saturday. My eyes are red, shelled and disheveled, smelly on my belly, television speller. Can't spell addiction without ADD. SAD, are you a disorder for socially anxious people in the basement? People wondering where the peace went, how the pace of this world got too fast for them. Teething on the pen, running menace on the microphone, listening to the silence of a Saturday morning, waking up yawning, not happy where I'm going, drinking dirty water and pains in my abdomen. Could be cancer, probably is, so might as well try quitting cigarettes. Should probably start writing for hours if this is all life is. While time fast forwards like wilting flowers, like if my sad addiction didn't rhyme with medication, then we both might not go nowhere, rock the radio station. In a flooded basement with snakes that bite, with biters that write, those with untied microphone cables rhyming to save us, not enslave us. Take us away, aliens, teach us and prove it, that the reason we are here you have something to do with. You probe us and take samples of our skin because we must be worth something, not just something to do on your universal weekend. My universal weakness is rhyming for tweakers, distorted speakers, throwing signs in the air with broken fingers, putting dots in sentences to keep you in past tense, waiting for the end of this, a resolution with the pen, an oddball show with a top 10 list, the popper sells for 10 pills that numb you. I give you pop poems about pills for free, lucky you. Put a beat through each syllable, verses in constant consonant, and alarm the aching ears of the illiterate. Let the mental masturbation mean something, coming with severed synapses, firing with friendly fire, meds off the shelf, man the storm at the DMV, licensed to ill, speaking BC, behind each sonnet, no meter teacher, no double helix gun.
Oh no, we lost Jason. That is Jason's Jagged Thought for the week, which you can find at
Back to buy
oddballmagazine.com.
your old magazines. Do you want mine? Selling digital copies for free $3.99. Empty bottles in Dragon Breath City, a game of operation, and not with all the pieces. How glorious.
All
A
right.
good to party, y'all. Oddball gone, but not forgotten. Bury me with the disco ball. The good go getting, the bad got. Eyes bloodshot. 8:11 in the morning. Did you get any of that?
Yeah, we got a lot of it. It did drop out in pieces. So
You kept on going. You kept on going. I think it just took a little while to deliver. It was, I think it was more delayed reaction. But that's one of my favorites from you, Jason. And the rest of you, as Chris said, can hear that on oddballmagazine.com.
Thanks, Tad, man. That's a big compliment. Thank you.
Maybe we can, in the edit, just add like little rocket sounds and stuff like that. You know, who knows? we can remix it later.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's been a real experience on the Oddball Show today, man. I mean, this is what happens when you try and, whatever, technology.
Not a podcast. There we go.
Hashtag not a podcast. All right.
So the Oddball Show does run here on Google Hangouts, so we cut in and out a little bit, but you can find us on SoundCloud and iTunes, on the YouTube page at JP9 Productions on YouTube. You can also find us at Oddball Magazine and at jp9productions.com. Thanks for joining us tonight, and thanks all very, very much to Not Art, our full support and gratitude for what he's putting forth in the art movement here in Boston. Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Yes! Great show, everybody.
This is the Oddball Show, a podcasting collaboration. JP Live Productions.
It's not the end.
Oddball.
This is not a podcast.